I've never said this out loud before, not to anyone, not even to myself, in a way that felt real. But here it is. I'm in love with someone I'm not supposed to love. It's strange how heavy those words feel, even in my mind, like they've been sitting there for years, pressing into me, whispering that they don't belong. I grew up in a small town where everyone knows everyone else, a place where the roads are lined with white picket fences and the churches are always full on. Sundays, the kind of place where the weight of tradition is thicker than the morning fog, and in this town, love looks a certain way. Boy meets girl. They fall in love, get married, and have kids. Anything outside of that isn't just unusual, it's unthinkable. But then there's her. Her name is Ivy, and she doesn't even know the power she has over me. I can still remember the first time I saw her. It was a crisp autumn day, and the leaves were swirling around like confetti. She was standing by the community notice board, pinning up a flyer about some fundraiser. She wore a scarf that looked too big for her and had this smile that made the world seem brighter. I remember the exact moment she laughed. It wasn't loud or attention-seeking. It was soft and warm, like the crackle of a fire on a cold night. I wasn't even standing close, but I could feel it. And in that moment, something in me shifted. I'd seen her around before. Ivy wasn't someone you could ignore, even if she wasn't trying to stand out. She was always organizing something. Food drives, charity events, even book clubs. She made people feel like they belonged. And I wondered if she ever felt lonely herself. That day, I stood there longer than I should have, pretending to look at the flyers next to hers. My heart beat faster when she glanced my way. She nodded, and I nodded back, and that was it. A 2-second interaction, but it stayed with me for days. I started noticing her more after that. The way her hair caught the light when she walked by, or how her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled. Little things that shouldn't have mattered but did. But I kept it all inside. I had to. In this town, you don't admit things like that. You don't even think them if you can help it. I told myself it was just admiration, a harmless crush, something that would go away if I ignored it long enough. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't. Some nights, I lie awake, tracing the shape of her face in my mind. I wonder what it would be like to tell her how I feel. To say, I think you are more than just a friend to me. But I'm scared. Scared of what people would say. Scared of losing what little I have. Ivy doesn't know any of this. She treats me like everyone else, with kindness and a quiet confidence. Sometimes, when we talk, I feel like I'm about to say something true, but the words get caught in my throat. I don't even know if she feels the same way. Maybe she has secrets of her own, hidden behind those gentle eyes. Maybe she's been waiting for someone like me to notice. I want to believe that. I want to believe that love can grow quietly, even in places where it feels forbidden. That maybe, just maybe, there's a chance for something real between us. But for now, this secret is mine alone. A soft confession whispered to the night, hoping someone, anyone, will understand. The first time I truly talked to Ivy wasn't anything special, at least not to anyone else. It was in the town library, of all places. The kind of place where the air smells like old paper and dust, and the silence is broken only by the turning of pages. I was looking for a book on local history, something to help with a school project. I wasn't expecting to find her there, sitting at a table near the window, the light casting soft shadows on her face as she read. I think I held my breath when I saw her. The world outside faded for a moment. She looked up and smiled when she noticed me staring, maybe caught me off guard, but her smile wasn't judgmental or cold. It was warm, inviting. "Looking for something?" she asked softly. Her voice was like a gentle breeze, comforting, calm. I shuffled my feet and nodded. "Yeah. A book on local history." She pointed to a shelf nearby. "I love those books. So many stories forgotten, waiting to be found." We started talking about the town, the old buildings, the people who shaped The place. Her words were simple but filled with meaning. I noticed the way her eyes sparkled when she got excited, how she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear without even thinking. I felt a strange warmth spread through me, like I was finally somewhere I belonged. We laughed quietly over a silly mistake I made, mixing up 2 dates, and she reached out to gently tap my arm. Her touch was light, almost like a whisper. That small touch sent a flutter through my chest. After that day, I found myself hoping to see her again. It became something I looked forward to. The chance to hear her voice, to see her smile. It wasn't just friendship anymore. Days passed, and I kept returning to the library, sometimes hoping she'd be there, sometimes just wanting to be near the quiet comfort the place gave me. One afternoon, I found her reading a book on poetry. I sat across from her, pretending to be interested in my own book, but I couldn't stop stealing glances at her. She caught me once and smiled softly. That smile, so gentle and real, felt like the sun breaking through a cloudy day. We began to talk more, about everything and nothing. The weather, our favorite movies, the dreams we held onto even when the world told us to let go. With every word, I felt a little less afraid to be myself, even if just for those moments. I started noticing small things. The way her laughter lingered in the air, the scent of vanilla from her shampoo, the way her fingers tapped rhythmically on the table when she was thinking. I realized then that what I felt was deeper than just liking someone. It was a quiet, growing hope, a wish for something more. But I kept it to myself. I was still afraid. Our friendship grew slowly, like a plant reaching for sunlight through cracks in the pavement. It wasn't sudden or flashy. It was quiet, steady, and full of little moments that began to mean everything to me. We spent afternoons at the library, sharing books and stories. Sometimes we would walk home together, the air cool and crisp, filled with the scent of pine and wet earth after rain. I loved those walks, just the 2 of us, side by side, talking about things that mattered and things that didn't. I learned how Ivy laughed when she was really happy. Her whole body would shake, and her eyes would sparkle like stars. I noticed how she always tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous or deep in thought. One night, we sat under a sky full of stars, wrapped in a shared blanket. She told me about her dreams of travel, of seeing the ocean for the first time, of finding a place where she could be free. I shared mine, the ones I'd kept locked away because I thought they weren't meant for someone like me. There was comfort in that silence between us, a warmth that didn't need words. Sometimes our hands would brush, accidentally at first, but those brief touches made my heart race. I found myself staring at her, memorizing the curve of her smile, the way her eyes softened when she looked at me. We began to share inside jokes, small secrets that no one else knew. She became the person I wanted to tell everything to, the person I could be myself with, even if just a little. It felt like the beginning of something I didn't have. The words for yet, a feeling so big it scared me, but also made me feel alive. Keeping my feelings hidden felt like carrying a heavy stone inside my chest. Every time I saw Ivy, my heart ached with words I couldn't say. I wanted to tell her everything. How her smile lit up my darkest days, how just being near her made me feel safe, but the fear stopped me. Our town wasn't a place for stories like mine. People whispered behind closed doors. They watched carefully, ready to judge anyone who dared to be different. The weight of that silence was hard to bear. Sometimes, at night, I wrote letters I never sent, pages filled with hope and fear, with dreams of what could be. I tucked them away, hidden under my bed, like fragile secrets too precious to share. I wondered if Ivy felt the same way. Maybe she looked at me with quiet longing, but I was too scared to ask. What if she didn't? What if I lost her? At school, I stole glances whenever I could. watching the way she laughed with friends, the way her eyes softened when she talked about her favorite books. Each look was a mix of joy and pain. I told myself to be patient, to wait for the right moment that might never come. The silence between us was heavy, filled with things unsaid, and I didn't know how long I could carry it. Sometimes I would replay our conversations in my head, imagining what would happen if I finally told her the truth, but fear always won. The risk felt too big. But even in that silence, I felt something growing. A hope that maybe, someday, I wouldn't have to hide anymore. I remember one rainy afternoon, sitting by the window of my room, watching drops slide down the glass. The sound of the rain was steady and calm. I felt so small, so alone with my secret. Yet, somewhere deep inside, there was a quiet spark, a wish that my silence could turn into something real. Sometimes, Ivy and I would talk about our dreams and fears, but never the ones that mattered most, the ones I kept locked away, hidden behind a smile. I wanted to tell her, but the words caught in my throat. It wasn't just fear of rejection. It was fear of what might happen if the world found out. The world outside our small town didn't always feel safe for people like me. Still, every time Ivy looked at me, I felt a little braver. Like maybe, just maybe, she could see the real me beneath the quiet and the fear. So, I waited. Waiting for a sign, a moment, something that would make me brave enough to break the silence. One evening, the sky was painted soft pink and purple as the sun began to set. Ivy and I sat on the old wooden bench by the lake, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like warm wool and fresh rain. The air was cool, and the quiet hum of insects filled the space between us. She sighed and looked at the water, her eyes distant. "Sometimes I feel like I'm pretending," she said quietly. "Like I'm wearing a mask that everyone expects me to keep on." I didn't say anything at first. I understood. I wore a mask too, one that hid the parts of me I thought no one would accept. "I have a family that doesn't really understand me," she continued. "They want me to be a certain way, and it's exhausting to keep up. I feel so lonely, sometimes, even when I'm with them." Her voice cracked just a little, and I wanted to reach out and hold her hand. But I hesitated, afraid of what it might mean. "I get it," I finally said, my voice soft. "I have fears too. Fears about who I am and what people might think if they knew the truth." For a moment, we sat in silence, sharing the weight of our hidden struggles without needing to say more. The blanket shifted between us, and I felt a small warmth where our legs touched. She turned to me and smiled, a gentle, tired smile that made my heart ache. "Thank you for listening," she whispered. "It's rare to find someone who gets it." That night, the stars began to blink awake in the dark sky above us. I felt closer to Ivy than ever before, like we were two people who had found a safe space in each other's company. We talked about dreams too, simple ones, like traveling to new places or learning to paint. But beneath those words, I felt a deeper connection growing, one built on trust and shared vulnerability. I realized that with her, I didn't have to pretend. I could be myself, the parts I usually hid from the world. Even though the feelings I had weren't spoken aloud, the space between us was charged with something real, something fragile and beautiful. I didn't know what would come next, but for the first time, I felt ready to face it. That evening was unlike any other. The sky was a deep shade of blue, dotted with the first stars of the night. Ivy and I were sitting on the steps outside the small cafe where we often met after school. The air smelled faintly of coffee and wet earth, as a light rain had just stopped. The world felt quiet, like it was holding its breath. We talked about everything and nothing. Books, music, the funny things that happened at school. But beneath the easy conversation, I felt a growing tension inside me. My heart was pounding, a mix of hope and fear swirling in my chest. At one point, Ivy reached for her jacket, but a sudden breeze knocked it from her hands. The jacket slipped down the steps, landing just beyond my reach. Without thinking, I leaned forward and picked it up. As I handed it back to her, our fingers brushed. The touch was brief, but it sent a warm spark through me, something I hadn't expected. I looked into her eyes, and for a moment, the world around us disappeared. There was a softness in her gaze, something unspoken but deeply understood. My breath caught. I wanted to say so much, but the words wouldn't come. She smiled gently, that same tired but beautiful smile from before. "Thanks," she said softly. Her voice felt like a melody, calm and steady. I kept my hand close to hers a second longer, feeling the smoothness of her skin, the subtle tremble of a shared secret. The rain started again, light and steady, the drops tapping softly on the wooden steps. Without thinking, I pulled my jacket around both of us, creating a small cocoon from the cool air and the wet night. Ivy shifted closer, leaning into the warmth. The world felt smaller, safer somehow. "I'm scared," I finally admitted, my voice low, scared of what this might mean. "But I don't want to hide anymore." She looked at me then, really looked, with something like hope shining in her eyes. "Me too," she said, her fingers gently brushing my cheek. That small touch was everything, tender, brave, a quiet promise that whatever came next, we would face it together. The rain slowed to a soft drizzle as we sat wrapped in the jacket, the night stretching around us like a gentle hug. I felt a new kind of courage growing inside me, one born from that simple, brave gesture. It wasn't a grand moment, no fireworks or loud confessions, just two people quietly choosing each other in the stillness of a rainy night. As we finally stood to leave, Ivy slipped her hand into mine. It was a small step, but for me, it meant everything. Walking home, the streets were empty, and the cool night air felt fresh and full of possibility. I realized that sometimes love doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it's found in the smallest, bravest moments, a touch, a look, a shared jacket on a rainy night. And in that moment, I knew I was ready to take the next step. Not because the world was perfect, but because we had each other. The days that followed felt different. The quiet moments we shared under the shared jacket lingered in my mind like a secret warmth. But outside, the world felt heavier, like an invisible weight pressed down on my chest. I live in a town where everyone knows everyone else, where traditions run deep and people expect you to follow certain paths without question. The idea of stepping outside those paths, especially in love, felt like walking on a tightrope over an endless drop. Ivy and I didn't say much about what had changed between us, but the simple act of holding hands sent ripples through my thoughts. I wondered what people would say if they noticed. Would they whisper behind our backs? Would I lose friends or face cold stares in hallways? Sometimes I caught myself watching the way others looked at us. Some smiles were warm, but others felt distant, even cautious. It was as if our quiet bond made some people uncomfortable. At night, I thought about the risks, not just to my reputation, but to my safety. What if my family found out? What if they rejected me? Or worse, what if Ivy faced those fears alone? Yet, despite the fear, I found a strange kind of strength in what we shared. Our connection wasn't just about stolen moments or shy smiles. It was about knowing someone saw me, truly saw me, and didn't turn away. In those quiet moments, I realized that love wasn't about fitting into the world's expectations. It was about creating a small, safe space where we could be ourselves. Sometimes that space was just a glance, a brush of hands, or a quiet conversation under a sky full of stars, but it was ours. And even if the world outside didn't understand, I knew we had something worth protecting. Ivy's presence gave me hope. Hope that love could survive, even in a place that wasn't always kind. The fear didn't disappear overnight. It still sat with me, a shadow I couldn't shake. but the warmth of what we shared made it easier to carry. I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, love could be louder than fear. The rain was soft that night, tapping gently on the roof of the old porch where Ivy and I sat. The world felt quiet and still, wrapped in a grey mist that blurred the edges of everything. I could hear the distant hum of cars and the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. It was the kind of night that made you feel small, but also close to something bigger, like the stars hidden just beyond the clouds. We had been talking for hours, as usual, but there was something different in the air, something waiting to be said. I turned to Ivy, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I tried to steady my breath, but the words felt heavy, like stones in my mouth. "I have to tell you something," I finally said, voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me with those kind eyes, patient and calm. "You can tell me anything," she said softly. I took a deep breath, searching for the courage that had felt so strong in the moments when we shared a jacket or held hands. Now, it felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter. I like you," I said, the words trembling but true. "More than a friend. I have for a long time." The silence that followed felt endless. My eyes stayed on hers, looking for any sign of what she felt. Then, a small smile curved her lips, a smile that was both shy and warm. "I'm glad you told me," she said quietly. "I like you too. I think I've been hoping you felt the same." Her hand found mine, fingers intertwining gently. The touch was soft, steady, and full of promise. We sat like that for a while, just holding hands, letting the silence speak for us. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just two people sharing a truth that had been hidden for too long. I felt a lightness inside me, like a weight had lifted. The fear didn't vanish, but it felt smaller somehow, pushed back by the warmth of her touch. Then, as if drawn by the same impulse, Ivy leaned closer. Our foreheads touched lightly, and I could feel her breath mingle with mine. "Thank you for trusting me," she whispered. I closed my eyes, letting the moment settle deep inside me. It was the first time I felt seen, known, and loved for exactly who I was. We didn't rush anything. There were no grand declarations or promises, just a quiet, gentle connection that spoke louder than words. When the rain finally stopped and the night began to fade into dawn, I knew something had changed, not just between us, but inside me. I was ready to face whatever came next, as long as we faced it together. We chose each other, even though the path ahead wasn't clear. It was scary to step into something so fragile and new. But that fear didn't stop us. Instead, it made us hold on tighter. Walking home that evening, our hands found each other. Again, it felt like the simplest, most important thing in the world. No words were needed. The warmth of her fingers wrapped around mine said everything. I thought about what it meant to love someone here, in this town where whispers followed, where expectations tried to chain us down. But Ivy's quiet strength reminded me that love isn't about fitting in. It's about being brave enough to be yourself, even when the world isn't ready. We promised to protect what we had, no matter what, to face the judgment, the questions, the looks, together. Sometimes we'd steal moments, laughing under the stars, sharing music on old headphones, or sitting close in a small, cozy room with soft blankets and warm light. These little things became our safe places. I realized love isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's about quiet courage. The courage to hold someone's hand in a crowded room. The courage to smile when you feel scared. The courage to believe in something even when it's hard. Ivy looked at me once and said, "We're stronger than they think." And I believed her, because love gave me a new kind of hope, one that didn't need permission or approval. It was mine to hold. So here we are, choosing love, choosing each other, no matter the fear, and that feels like the bravest thing I've ever done. Looking back, I see how far we've come. From silent wishes to whispered truths. From hiding in shadows to standing quietly in the light. Our love may not be loud or flashy, but it's real and strong. There were times I wanted to give up. Times when the fear felt bigger than the hope, but something inside me held on. Something that knew this love was worth the fight. Ivy and I have learned to carry our story with us, like a fragile flame. We protect it, nurture it, and let it glow softly in the darkest moments. This town may never fully understand us. The world may never make it easy. But our love is a quiet rebellion, a small, beautiful act of courage. If history tried to erase our love, would we let it? Or would we fight to keep it alive? That question stays with me, because love isn't just about the past or the present. It's about the future we choose to build. And as long as we keep choosing each other, our story will echo through time.